Our prayer this morning is by George Kimmich Beach. Some days, dark tremors sweep across our lives. Troubling events accost us. We have grown accustomed to such things, and often we have fenced off our natural sympathies with the thought, this belongs to somebody else. But now a crisis of life brushes close to us, touches us, befalls us and those we love. We want now to know how and what and why. We want an explanation, though we know that all our explanations put together do not finally explain. They but fend off worry, anger, and grief. The mysteries of evil and innocence remain. The darkness of being at a loss remains. And in this abyss of the heart, we can but pray for light. This is when I pray, and this is my prayer. Let me be patient of all these feelings that drive me hither and yon. May I be at peace, more patient with myself. Let me live within the questions that promise no answers, but only signal the mystery that gave them birth. Let me turn from every pettiness of the heart, willing to see and accept that the world does not revolve around me. Let the grief, the pain, and the nameless trouble that overcomes me also open me to feel what others have felt. Giver of being and freedom, unbind my compassion for all beings about me, and again set free the child of grace within me. Amen. Do you remember the story of Job from the Hebrew Bible? Job is a wealthy man living in a land called Uz with his large family and extensive flocks. He is blameless and upright, always careful to avoid doing evil. One day, Satan appears before God in heaven. God boasts to Satan about Job's goodness, but Satan argues that Job is only good because God has blessed him abundantly. Satan challenges God that if given permission to punish the man, Job will turn and curse God. God allows Satan to torment Job to test his theory. In the course of one day, Job receives 4 messages, each bearing separate news that his livestock, servants, and 10 children have all died due to marauding invaders and natural catastrophes. Job tears his clothes and shaves his head in mourning, but he still blesses God in his prayers. Satan appears in heaven again, and God grants him another chance to test Job. This time, Job is afflicted with horrible skin sores. His wife encourages him to curse God and to just give up and die. So much for moral support. But Job refuses, struggling to accept his circumstances. 3 of Job's friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, love the names in the Bible, come to visit him, sitting with Job in silence for 7 days out of respect for his mourning. On the 7th day, Job speaks. Job curses the day he was born. He wishes that his birth had been shrouded in darkness, feeling that light or life only intensifies his misery. Eliphaz responds that Job, who has comforted other people, now shows that he never really understood their pain. Eliphaz believes that Job's agony must be due to some sin that Job has committed, and he urges Job to seek God's favor. Bildad and Zophar agree that Job must have committed evil to offend God's justice and argue that he should strive to exhibit more blameless behavior. Bildad surmises that Job's children brought their deaths upon themselves. Zophar implies that whatever wrong Job has done probably deserves even greater punishment than what he has received. So much for friendship. After making pains to assert his blameless character, Job ponders man's relationship to God. He wonders why God judges people by their actions if God can just as easily alter or forgive their actions. Job admits that he does not even understand himself well enough to effectively plead his case to God. Job's friends are offended that he scorns their wisdom. They think he lacks an appropriate fear. After a while, the upbraiding proves too much for Job, and he grows sarcastic, impatient, and afraid. He laments the injustice that God lets wicked people prosper while he and countless other innocent people suffer. Job wants to confront God and complain, but he cannot physically find God to do it. Finally, God responds, calling from a whirlwind and demanding Job to be brave and respond to his questions. God's questions are rhetorical. Where were you when I created the earth? When the morning stars sang together and all God's children shouted with joy? Do you know where the light gathers and where the darkness makes its home? Do you teach the lion to hunt its prey, and does the hawk fly by your wisdom? Overwhelmed by the encounter, Job acknowledges God's unlimited power and admits the limitations of his human knowledge. God returns Job's health, providing him with twice as much property as before. New children are born to Job and his wife, and together they live happily ever after. So, pretty much since the dawn of time, or at least the creation or evolution of humankind, we humans have been pondering the question, why do bad things happen to good people? In fact, this is such a substantial question that it has been given a really fancy name in theological circles. The term is theodicy. Now, I studied this theological conundrum at length in seminary, didn't you, Bill? And there have been many, many books written about it. But if I were to summarize it for you in layman's terms, it would go roughly like this. If there is a God, and if God is all-powerful, then why do bad things happen to good people? And if there is a God, but God can't stop bad things from happening to good people, then maybe that means that God is not all-powerful. But if there is a God, and if God is all-powerful and can stop bad things happening to good people if God wants to, then that means that maybe God has a plan too big for us to comprehend. Or maybe God is a little bit of a jerk. Job's account takes up this last possibility, right? The story of Job depicts God messing with us just for fun. Some strange ego trip that God's on, or a sense of competition with God's main rival, Satan. You can understand why these questions have vexed theologians and lay people alike, and why the writers of the Bible would have tried to address them. And you can understand why story is such a rich way to delve into the various options of how the universe is structured. Back in biblical times, as with today, bad things kept happening. and sometimes they really piled on. So folks wrestled individually and as a community about what was happening, and they were seeking some answers as to why. Now, I have never found it very helpful to get bogged down in these theological why questions. It's a spiritual quagmire for sure. And it's certainly a messy topic for Unitarian Universalists to wrestle with together, because we can't even get past that first bit of the theodicy question, if there is a God. So rather than tackling theodicy, perhaps a better question for us as a community is, how do we get through hard times? This feels like a much more resonant question for me, more helpful and more focused on what we ourselves can do for ourselves and each other, given our current predicament. Because bad things do happen to good people, and sometimes they pile on. I feel like as a collective community, we definitely have a sort of Job quality to us this year. I mean, on the national and international scenes, there is horrible news every day. There have been a phenomenal amount of weather-related events wreaking havoc around the world, and on a quite local level, we were literally flooded by the sea. On a more personal level, there are many people in this community who are in pain, who have endured illness and surgeries and medical mysteries. Some of you have lost more loved ones in the past year than anyone should have to lose in a lifetime. Many of us have loved ones who are in the hospital right now. Pets have gotten sick or died. Relationships have ended, and friendships and families have been torn. Plus, it's the flu season. If you haven't at some point asked the question, why is all of this happening to me, then you are just a better person than I am. But as I said, I never do stay with that question long, because it's never a satisfactory one. And it's not one that I feel that we can really help each other with as a spiritual community, other than to tell each other, this isn't your fault. And that is helpful sometimes to hear. More helpful than Job's friends, anyway. But what we can really help each other with, even as we are suffering ourselves, is answering that question with each other. How do we get through hard times? That's the question we take up this morning, and there are so many spiritual resources from many different sources that we can draw on. And the best part is, we each have tools to offer each other here. We can share what has worked in our own lives, because we have all faced hard times. This week, the tools that have jumped out at me, particularly as we still navigate this flood recovery process on top of everything else that is happening, have come most strongly from two sources: the recovery community and music. There's a book written by Dr. Tian Dayton called One Step in Front of the Other. It's a collection of daily affirmations for recovery. And the recovery Dr. Dayton is talking about is from addiction, but the tools in the affirmations hold true for all kinds of healing. I was hooked with the first affirmation. Day 1. All I need to do today is to put one foot in front of the other. I can only walk this walk a step at a time. Each time I take a step, I will trust that the next will follow, along with the next, and the next, and the next. What I know today is that no matter what does or does not come my way, I will wake up each morning to one more day of my spiritual journey. Nothing more, nothing less. I will keep putting one foot in front of the other. Occasional leaps of faith and periods of unusual progress will no doubt happen, as will slips and backslides. But no matter what comes along, I never have to struggle alone again. I place my hand in the hand of my higher power, and together we walk a path of recovery, one step at a time. Now, folks who go to AA and Al-Anon and other meetings know that higher power can mean different things to different people. Meetings are very parallel to Unitarian Universalist congregations in that regard. What is important when hard things happen is not that we agree on what higher power means or if there is a God. What is important is that we are reaching out beyond ourselves, and that when we do, we find a hand there to hold. And sometimes we are that hand for each other. As the weeks go on and we slowly get back to normal here at the Meetinghouse, I have realized that I am only able to get through each day because of the hands offered to me from this community and beyond. I'll confess to being disheartened coming back from my conference in Florida because things here looked pretty much the same as when I left. The walls were still down and the light in my office still didn't work. But then April gave me the stack of mail that was waiting for me. And there were so many cards and donation checks and notes of encouragement in that stack. The one that particularly touched me was a letter from the Unitarian Universalist church in Barnstable, who had taken up a collection for us, and who extended their offer to come and help in person if we need them. They are just up the road, they said. Day 2. Oh, this is a preacher's nightmare here. Pages are out of order. Found it. So that letter gave me the encouragement I needed to take just that next step. Just make a list of tasks that needs to be done. Just ask the electrician if they can take a look at the light in my office next, please. And they did. Let there be light. And this idea of not tackling the whole problem, not getting through all the grief, not changing a lifestyle for the rest of our life, but just taking that one next step in the right direction, putting one foot in front of the other. That idea, that spiritual tool, has been getting me through. And now, day 2. Today I choose to do what I need to do to keep my soul alive, to stay awake to life and to this new day with all potential. If I walk by this day without seeing it, I will miss what the day has to offer me. If I rush through it with a preoccupied, distracted mind, I will just get from one thing to the next till it is over. But if I look, if I understand that being alive in the moment brings unexpected gifts, if I recognize that simply being alive is a gift, then the moments in my day will expand. They will have a feel of something subtle and alive. I will be aware of a deeper pulse of living. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. It works for recovery. It works for grief. It works for illness and health challenges. It works for justice. It works for just getting through the day. Day 3. I understand that the quality of my week is influenced by how I live the hours of my day. I will keep it simple today. I cannot solve all the problems I am becoming aware of overnight, nor do I wish to try. Awareness can hurt. It asks me to become responsible for what I now see, to stop living mindlessly, and to recognize that if my life isn't working the way I want it to, I may need to pull up my shirt sleeves and get messy, to dig my hands into the soil of my day. Awareness can empower me. If I try to make all my life changes at once, I may get overwhelmed and want to quit, to give up, run away, or self-medicate. Today, I will take baby steps. I'll have a simple plan for my day and trust that today, well lived, will create a better tomorrow. I hope you don't mind that I've created a simple plan for our day together. We're going to sing together, and then when worship is over, we're going to go downstairs, and we're each going to take one thing on that flood recovery task list and do it. We're going to move furniture back into place and fill mop buckets and rehang pictures. We're going to put one foot in front of the other to reclaim the sacred space of our meeting house. Even though the walls are still bare to the studs in some places and there are other big projects to do, we are going to tackle the little ones. And we are going to lead with love. So there's also a station where those of you who are not able to do the heavy lifting can go and write thank you notes to our contractors and supporters. And we also have cards there to send to our neighbors who are affected by the flood too. Because we have been blessed by a large community of care to help us get through our days. But some of the business and homeowners have been slogging through this flood stuff on their own. And they are tired, and they are dirty, and they have lost a lot. And we can be the hand that is reaching out to them when they have lost steam or even given up hope. Day 4. The world is opening up to me in a whole new way. Thank God I learned to reach out and ask for help. Thank God I came to understand that I cannot nor need not do it alone. Thank God I became humble enough to let something in. I can, with the support of others traveling this path, learn new ways of being. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Amen, and blessed be. One foot in front of the other and lead with